This war is real. Fighting is everything. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Tempt not the righteous man to draw his sword. Conviction, righteousness, ruthlessness. To understand tolerance, you have to understand the line of intolerance. War is the teacher, soldiers are the students. They become the bards of war.
By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Proverbs 24, 3-4. Everything that we do has to have a base, and our base is our homes. It is the place that we have to feel secure. It is the place that we have to feel safe. It is the place that we need to create as a sanctuary for everything that we do going forward. These are trying times. As John F. Kennedy said, in the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. Welcome to the Bards FM podcast. My name is Scott Kesterson. I am the director and producer of the war documentary, Bards of War, Fighting is Everything, and you are listening to episode 122, County by County, Part 2, Home. Did you know that after the age of 20, your body produces about 10% less collagen each passing decade? The visible result ends up being the appearance of wrinkles, flaky skin, hair loss, and dirty nails as we age. That's why Ageless Multi-Collagen was created. Ageless Multi-Collagen gives you the 5 types of collagen you need from 4 premium sources in one complete protein mix. You'll enjoy powerful support for your skin, hair, nails, joints, bones, digestive system, and muscles with results you can see and feel in just a few short weeks. There is free shipping with every order, and every order has a 60-day money-back guarantee. Get your own bag of Ageless Multi-Collagen for 51% off plus free shipping by going to www.healthwithbards.com or by clicking the link in the video description box below. Just a quick reminder that Bards FM podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as Podbean and YouTube. Thomas Paine wrote, "It is not a field of a few acres of ground, but a cause that we are defending. And whether we defeat the enemy in one battle or by degrees, the consequence will be the same. Any strategy that we have in preparing ourselves for being active and involved in protecting our communities and our counties must begin with our homes. Our homes are our sanctuaries. Our homes have to be the place that we feel safe. It's the place that we have to feel secure. Across America right now, the feelings of insecurity are at an all-time high. One only has to look at gun sales. Sales of guns are up 72%. To quote the Washington Post, nearly 5 million Americans purchased a firearm for the very first time in 2020. NSSF surveyed firearm retailers, which reported that 40% of the sales were conducted to purchasers who have never previously owned a firearm. The feeling that things are not right is permeating everywhere. You can see it if you just search online looking for key things like ammunition, bulk food products. People are starting to hoard, and they're starting to get scared. From this time going forward, each person needs to develop a home security plan. Now, as I have said already, I'm not going to map out all the details that you're going to need, but I do want to lay out a framework which I think will be a solid foundation that if everybody follows, each person ends up feeling empowered and, most importantly, giving security back to the home. A home preparation plan should constitute certain critical things. On my list, and first on my list, is a Bible, and that is a printed Bible of hard copy. The one thing you can expect if there is a domestic crisis, there are going to be outages of power and potential outages of access to information. Having information in printed form is always an essential part of a survival plan. The Bible is one of those tools that we go to when things seem to be falling apart. And the last thing you want to have to do is to go to turn on an electronic appliance and find out you can't get access to the web to read scripture. In the colonial days, the Bible was near the bedstand. So the first question I would ask anybody is, where is your Bible? And though that for many does not ever make the list of critical prepper needs, to me it is on the top of mine. Prepping is one of these issues that is a lifelong pursuit. So it isn't something that you simply run out to the grocery store and buy a few things and you're done. It's a way of thinking about everything that you do. For those that have been prepping, the experience over months or years lends the knowledge of needing one thing over another thing. But there are some basics that everybody should have. And so, as I say, laying out these basics is going to be critical because the goal here is to give everybody some guidance to strengthen your home and to give yourself security for what may be a coming crisis. The one thing we very possibly could be facing is increased restrictions to food and life essentials. Meaning, unless you wear a mask or unless you get vaccinated, you're not going to be allowed to have access to purchase these items. The vaccination is an entirely separate topic that I'll deal with in the last episode, but it is something I'm going to just touch on here because for those that keep thinking that this vaccination is not going to happen, I can assure you on a global level, the vaccine development is rolling out at high speed, and it is part of this New World Order agenda. Currently, there are over 130 vaccines in development. There are 2 on fast track in the United States, Moderna being one. And Moderna has already been given a contract to deliver 100 million doses by September. What I'm telling you is, whether it is a vaccine or whether it is a mask, or whether it is simply restrictions on your constitutional rights, the only way that we are going to be able to be solid as patriots moving forward at a county level is to be able to endure a period of time without having to rely on the supermarket access for your basics, such as food, water, and basic hygiene. That is a foundation of any good preparation model as we prepare to defend our local communities and counties. The local communities and counties are the areas that we can affect. We can't affect national strategy. The only access we have to national strategy is making our voice loud. But in our local counties and communities, we have to begin with our home, and that beginning place goes into our ability to have a basic set of supplies for approximately 90 days. Now, I use 90 days for a very particular reason. If you look at civil unrest or you look at these lockdown periods and you look at the psychology of what people can endure, people handle 30 days of inconvenience fairly well. But after about 30 days, emotions start to fester and boil. On a more offensive position, if you want to break the back of a corporation that's trying to force agendas such as mandate vaccines or mandate masks, boycotting stores for 30 days, most companies can endure. Boycotting stores for 60 and 90 days has an impact on their bottom line. I use the 90-day model as a minimum of being prepared. It deals with unexpecteds. It covers everything from natural disasters to civil unrest. And you can figure that over 90 days, you're not going to be sitting still. You're going to be using your networks. You're going to be working with people locally. You're going to be using your resources that you have to either resupply some of what you have or work through the problem that you're facing until stability returns to the community. The thing to understand is the war that's being waged upon us is being directed at our vulnerabilities. Top on that list is fear. Down from that is our access to the basics that we need and we have become dependent on to get from stores on almost a daily basis. Top on my list of preparation items is water. If you've been paying attention to the news, you should have already noted that in LA, the mayor has already begun suspending people's access to water and power for having assemblies in their homes beyond a certain number. These tyrants are going to go after us. It is not a question of if, it's a matter of when. And the closer we get to election, you're going to see more and more of those that have bought into the New World Order step up and try to crush the people to prevent President Trump from winning, and most importantly, influence the cultural war so that even if he wins, that they control the perception of this fake pandemic and the fear that it has people locked into. Using the leverages of power and water in homes is one of those tools. So you need to begin in a prepping model to look at water. Water is one of those things that takes space to store. It also takes some forethought. Generally speaking, 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of water a day is what a person needs to keep their body healthy, for hygiene, and for cooking. What I would suggest is beginning with enough water for about 30 days. So approximately 30 gallons of water. I would also keep a small bottle of bleach around that you can use a tablespoon or so of bleach in any water that you acquire to do some basic sanitation. I would also acquire a backpack water filter. Having a 3-level system like that, especially in urban environments, gives you some flexibility to know that you have enough water for approximately 30 days, that you can forage water if you need to, and you have an ability to sanitize and even filter if necessary if the water is contaminated. Food. Again, this is on a 90-day model. From a cost perspective and an ease perspective, rice and beans should be a staple in your food prep. Rice and beans can be acquired quickly. I would recommend brown rice, and you can use a variety of beans, black beans, pinto beans, or chickpeas. Using brown rice and beans like that, you have all the nutrition you need for sustaining. It is approximately 1/3 of a cup of rice and 1/3 of a pound of beans per meal per person. Just a word of advice, the easiest thing to do with beans is to soak them in water before you cook them. Soaking them overnight is ideal, and then when you cook your beans, it takes much less energy and time. The last thing with food that I would add in is salt, making sure that you have plenty of salt for yourself for approximately 90 days. Next category is fire. Fire covers light, heat, and fuel for cooking. My recommendation is to make sure you have candles in the home for light, some sort of long burn candles. Tea candles are really good. The one caution when you're using candles is fire safety. I know that sounds almost kindergarten to mention it, but in a time of panic and a time of chaos, we sometimes forget the basics. You also need to have some sort of mechanism to light the candles. Don't forget that. If it's going to be matches, make sure you have plenty of matches. If it's going to be a lighter, make sure you have lighter fluid, or if it's a disposable lighter, you have other lighters available, not just one. Build in redundancy. The second element is heat, especially as we head into the winter months. My recommendation on heat, if you're not in a position to buy something like a portable propane heater or have access to something wood burning, candles in a contained space can actually provide a great deal of heat. One of the ways that you can do that is to use a space blanket and to create a bit of a tent around the candle, and you'll find that you can create an enormous amount of heat for yourself in there. But the basics of that is what I just said, is the space blanket. They're very affordable. You can keep yourself warm and wrapped in them. And it's, again, we're talking of a situation where we may experience rolling blackouts. Maybe it's a natural disaster, or maybe it's a tyrannical mayor that's cutting off your power. Nonetheless, you need to think in terms of things that will keep you personally warm. You can live in a cold environment, but if you personally are warm with, say, a fleece and socks and a space blanket, you're going to be okay. The third element then is cooking. I believe in redundancy in cooking. Something like having a barbecue with propane and extra tank is a very affordable and good way to have a cooking capability that's not dependent on the services provided by the city. A rocket stove, and there's many of them out there, is a very efficient wood-burning cooking appliance that can use twigs to produce an enormous amount of heat. And a camp stove. You can do everything from an MSR multi-fuel stove to one of these that uses a butane-type fuel bottle. The next category is shelter. That is our home, essentially. None of this home preparation model is built around bug out. You're welcome to build a bug out bag. I'm not going to advise one here. But from a home standpoint, shelter is one of these areas we need to consider in terms of what's the vulnerability of our home to natural disaster, what's our vulnerability to home to having power and water shut off. Shelter can also be a situation where there's a natural disaster and your roof gets blown off or your windows get blown out. Having a tent, or at the minimum a tarp, is always a smart thing in case you have to create an improvised shelter or use the tent as an interim shelter until other arrangements can be made. One of the other big things in your basics of your 90-day plan should also be first aid, hygiene, and home remedies. If you are on medication, you need to make sure that you can get a prescription as far out as you're allowed. If you can have 60 days of supply of a medication or 90 days supply of a medication, I would do that. Hygiene, basics. Having soap, Baby wipes are a good thing to have. Having some sanitation items. I mentioned bleach before. That's a very good universal sanitizer to have around in diluted form. It can be used on dishes. It can be used to wipe counters down. And your first aid element, have some basics of first aid. Hydrogen peroxide, triple antibiotic cream. Have some alcohol on hand. Make sure you have gauze, athletic tape to tape the gauze on. Make sure you've got a range of Band-Aids. You're not trying to be a medical professional. You're trying to deal with cuts, abrasions, some ability to rinse your eye. You need to deal with the basics is what you're trying to do so that you're not having to panic if something happens. Getting cuts is one of those things that happens easily. And when it does, if it's a deep cut, we immediately have kind of a flight or fight response to that. And the biggest thing is to keep ourselves calm and be able to bandage it up and take care of it quickly and being able to sanitize it. Also being able to deal with pain. So ibuprofen and Tylenol or aspirin should be a basic in your kit depending on what you can take. Notice that in this entire setup so far, all we've talked about is the sorts of things that maintain your comfort and your security in terms of food and water. The final thing that I would mention in this are home remedies. One of the best things to have around for a lot of different uses is apple cider vinegar. You can use it as a digestive aid. You can use it to sanitize counters. You can use it as a wash on your skin if you have fungal infection on your hand or your foot. Apple cider vinegar is a tremendous product to have around. It's one of those home remedies that can be used on many things. Another one of those is coconut oil. Coconut oil can be used as an antimicrobial in cooking and for digestion. When you look at items to have in your kit, beyond just the basics of food, you try to build in items that have multiple uses. That increases the adaptability of your system and it allows you to have what you need in less space. The final category of all of this is the home security plan. Unfortunately, this is where most people start and they begin with, I need a gun. But think logically about what you really need here. Home defense begins with situational awareness, making sure your doors can be locked well, having motion sensor lights on the outside, making sure that you can see well through the peepholes on your door. Lighting and situational awareness go a long ways in helping a home defense plan. Another critical part of a home defense plan is having a phone tree, meaning that you can call somebody if you need help, not relying on the police department, and having a plan for escape, whether it's fire, natural disaster, or home burglary. From a weapon systems point of view, I'm not going to make recommendations here. There's plenty of other sites that specialize in that, and I'm going to leave that to you. One other item that is often overlooked in a home defense plan is an extremely powerful light. Having a powerful flashlight with, say, 1,000 lumens is a very effective tool in blinding any would-be attacker, but also in brightly illuminating your space so that you can see clearly within your environment. Adding to that is a headlamp, because with a headlamp, you are hands-free when you're working through your environment. So that kind of wraps up the basics of your 90-day plan. And I'm sure I'm going to get comments about what I forgot. So if you have things that you think people should add to that, feel free to add it to the comments. Like I said, these are just kind of structural guidelines for people to go over. The biggest part of the home defense plan is the mindset. We have to be aware that our homes are our sanctuaries. We need to create that sense of security for ourselves, whatever that entails. For me, I like to always see layers of things so that you've created the layering of different abilities for water, multiple capabilities for food. You have multiple capabilities for cooking, for starting a fire, and for providing light, whether it's flashlights, LEDs, or candles. That you have a system to set up temporary shelter within your shelter if need be for a variety of reasons, be it heat or loss of a roof or window damage in a storm, and that you have essential first aid, hygiene, and home remedies to deal with some of the things that might just come up on a daily basis where you may not be able to get to the hospital or emergency room. And then, of course, those basic security items for home defense, making sure that your doors have good capabilities to lock, great visibility out of a peephole, motion sensor lights if you can get them, and something to protect yourself, be it lethal or non-lethal, and those choices are yours. At the end of the day, the home is the sanctuary, and it should begin every day with the reverence of God. I'm preaching here a bit, but I'm very serious about this because this gives us strength. It should begin with prayer and end with prayer in your home. And by doing that, we really bring in the full power of what God gives us. And it reminds me of Psalm 91, 9-11. Because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge, no evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. That to me is a guiding light on everything in the home that should be part of that foundation in the morning and the night, so that we feel that our homes are our safe places, especially in this time. As we move forward here in protecting our communities and our counties, if our homes are not safe, we aren't secure. If our homes don't feel secure, we don't have the strength to step out into our communities. And hence, the home is the first pillar in building a great plan to secure our counties and secure our communities. So I want to close here today with Mark 4:35-40, and just a reflection on the words of Christ. And so it reads, "On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side.' And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with them, and a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?' And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, 'Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?'" Patriots, most of all in all of this, our faith has to be strong. We can get wrapped up heavily with the details of home prepping and home defense, and it should not be something we do in fear or in panic. Begin with the Bible and begin with God. Follow the basics that I've laid out here to give yourself some security. For those that have been doing this, I would encourage you to use this just as a guide to double check what you've already done. I don't assume to have all the answers. I have a way of doing things that I trust. And most importantly, at the end of the day, is the trusting in God and the building of community. And that's where we're going to go in the upcoming episodes. Stay strong in prayer, stay strong in faith, and trust that God will deliver. God bless. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, if you like the channel, please hit subscribe, like the episode, and share it on your favorite social media forum. The Bards FM podcast can be found on Podbean at www.bards.fm. You can also find the Bards FM podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, and BitChute by entering Bards FM in the search bar on the respective apps or websites. Also remember to check out Bards of War Fighting is Everything documentary at bardsofwarfilm.com. That's bardsofwarfilm.com. Buying a copy helps support these podcasts and future film projects. And if you would like to support the channel with a donation link is below. All podcasts are written and produced by Scott Kesterson. Opinions expressed are the individual's only. Interpretations of events are the sole rights and opinions of the podcast presenter and guests. Bards FM, Bards of War, Fighting is Everything, and Expedition Cafe are trademarks of Scott Kesterson and Expedition Cafe. All work is owned and copyrighted by Scott Kesterson and Expedition Cafe. Thank you again. You have been listening to the Bards FM podcast. This is Scott Kesterson, out for now.